In May 2023, US Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy issued an advisory highlighting the profound public health crisis of loneliness and social isolation in the United States. He emphasized that approximately half of US adults experience measurable levels of loneliness, which significantly impact both mental and physical health. Dr. Murthy compared the health risks associated with loneliness to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, noting increased risks of heart disease, stroke, dementia, and premature death. To address this issue, Dr. Murthy proposed a national strategy to advance social connection, focusing on 6 foundational pillars. The first one is strengthening our social infrastructure. This would be designing environments that promote connection, investing in community programs, more third spaces, etc. The second is enacting pro-connection public policy. This would be accessible public transport, paid family leave, stuff like that supports social engagement. Number 3, mobilizing the health sector. That would be training healthcare professionals to assess and support patients' social connection needs. Number 4, reforming digital environments, so ensuring technology fosters meaningful connections rather than detracting from them. Number 5, deepening our knowledge, so conducting research to better understand our social connection and its impacts. And then number 6, cultivating a culture of connection, so that would be promoting values of kindness, respect, and service to strengthen societal bonds. Welcome to the Wellness Plus podcast. My name is Chelsea and I am your host. Today, we are thrilled to welcome MJ Murray Vachon, a seasoned therapist, author, and host of Creating Midlife Calm podcast. MJ has spent her career helping people navigate the challenges of modern life and is well known for taking the mystery out of mental wellness. In this episode, we'll tackle 2 pressing issues that are deeply intertwined: loneliness and smartphone addiction, and how these things have led us to kind of a global friendship recession. MJ is going to share her expert insights into how digital habits are impacting our mental health, the science behind connection and community, and share some actionable steps that we can all use to reclaim our lives. MJ, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm great. Really excited to have a conversation with you.
Good. I'm delighted to have you on. Before we really launch into the topic today, I would love to hear, and for our audience especially, what brought you into this career? What was it that has you here today?
I think it was a lot of happy accidents
Okay.
that started off not so happy. But when I was a teenager, I had a really good friend. She was like the social hub of our group. And in 6 months' time, she went from being fun and outgoing and a good student to withdrawn and rebellious and angry.
Wow.
And this is in the mid 70s. People didn't talk about mental health, but we noticed something was wrong with her, but there was really nowhere to go with it. And one day I was blow drying my hair and I had this thought go through my head: I'm going to spend the rest of my life figuring out what happened to her. Well, of course I didn't do that. I, became a teenager and did my thing.
Yeah.
But when I was at college, I was introduced to this field of counseling and mental health. It was very new, lots of very negative stereotypes around it. And I decided to pursue a degree in counseling. And ironically, at my first job, I ran into this friend of mine.
No way.
20 years later. And she told me that what had happened to her was her dad had sexually abused her.
Wow.
And at that
awful.
time, I was working in trauma a lot with family sexual abuse. And I was just stunned because I just never, of course, as a young teenager, no one talked about sexual abuse in that time. So that really was what led me to becoming a therapist. I just liked it. It used a lot of my natural skills. And after about 8 or 9 years in community mental health, I had this thought of, and it was soon after running into her, I have all this great information as a therapist, but people walking the street need it and don't have it.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine and we developed a summer camp for girls called Inner Challenge. And in that camp, it was a week long, and we gave them mental wellness skills. And after the 3rd year, husband and wife asked us to bring it to the junior high that their children were at. And so I was there for 21 years. And so I've had this really neat career where I've worn two hats. I've always been a clinician,
Yeah.
and I've had 48,000 hours of sessions as a therapist. And I've had this mental wellness program for 31 years that I've done in schools and churches, businesses. I taught it to Notre Dame football. And my clinical work informs my wellness work, and my wellness work informs my informs my clinical work.
Wow.
And really, when we talk about loneliness and we talk about cell phone use, it is such an integration of the clinical and wellness that I'm really excited to be here and talk with you about it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an epidemic right now, an actual epidemic, not just conversationally. It's something that's affecting the half of the people in the US, loneliness especially. And I mean, I think we can all agree that the phone thing has kind of gotten out of control for everybody. It is insane. It's so relied upon, and it's almost, do you do that thing where there's certain scenarios that you'll go to reach for your phone even though you don't need it? That I
Oh, of
find it's
course.
something that I'm hearing from absolutely everybody these days. So your journey, I'm hearing that you obviously worked a lot with youth, but now your podcast is for midlife. What was that transition for you?
This is really interesting because it really does connect to youth. And that I had a podcast on mental wellness, and then I had the chance to work with a group, and they really led me through this beautiful process. And their question is, you have all this clinical experience, but your podcast is just talking about wellness. Why would you not integrate it? And as I learned more about podcasting, like most podcasters, I just jumped in, did it myself, and learned the hard way. And I really began to think about whether I work with college students or teenagers, the people who are the most impactful on that age group are their parents.
Oh, I
And
didn't even think of that. That is such a link.
yeah, and
Wow.
so I really decided that the demographics tell us that younger people listen to podcasts for entertainment. People in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s listen to podcasts for education.
Okay.
So it was a hard shift, but I have loved it. My numbers have soared since I've made the shift. And I try to really do these episodes in 10 to 15 minute bites, because people who are in midlife, they're carrying the burden of so much in our culture right now. They're also carrying the opportunity to try to help us figure out how to use the cell phone and really how to have connection again in a culture where how we connect is vastly different.
So different from even when I grew up, and I imagine anybody older than me, it's just completely foreign to us now.
Yes.
So from your extensive experience as a therapist and a counselor and everything, how do you define the loneliness epidemic, and what do you think are the primary causes of it in society today?
We live in a vastly different world than 50 years ago, 40 years ago. And so we really know that the primary causes are twofold. Many of the old structures or institutions that gave people purpose, that gave people community, are no longer places that people turn to, whether it's the church, whether it's the Kiwanis Club, whether it's a local organization. Ask any nonprofit, ask any local community group, they're begging for people to be able to step in and help them. And that just isn't what is possible now. And a piece of that is that most families have two people working. Single parent families don't have the time. And it takes, for people in their 20s, it takes much longer now to find a career, get a career. All of that is much different. So there's a real breakdown in those community groups.
Absolutely.
And second, where it dovetails with the phone is that there's a great book out. It's quite old now, maybe 10 years, but it was called Alone Together.
Okay.
And that part of why I've become so passionate, I don't believe I have any client in the last 10 years that one thing they've had to figure out is their cell phone. And they need to figure it out for their mental health. They need to figure it out for their physical health. They also need to figure it out for their relationship health. which is
Yes.
loneliness.
Yeah.
And so, the cell phone on one hand is great for connectivity. I have a grandson, he lives in Atlanta. I can
Mm.
FaceTime him and it's very fun and cute and adorable. But I also have a lot of clients that work remotely,
Yeah.
and they're on their phone at night, or who are elderly and are on their phone, and they don't really have any reason to go out. So
Hmm.
that's increased loneliness. But then I have a lot of clients who are at work, they do their job, and they come home and they're on the phone feeling like they're connecting.
Yes. Yeah. That
But
kind of
they're
made me think of the dating apps and how, like you said, people in their 20s, it takes them longer to get a job. And I assume maybe longer to get married or find a partner and stuff like that because of that. Maybe, I guess, I don't know if it's right to say, but a false sense of connection. So you come home after work and you're chatting to a couple of guys or a couple of girls on your dating apps and you're like, oh, this is great. My dating life is popping. I've got loads going on. But like, hey everyone, Chelsea here. I would love to take a moment to introduce you to our app, Yoga Plus. You will gain access to an incredible collection of videos led by top instructors in yoga, fitness, nutrition, and so much more. Download our Yoga Plus app today and get a free 14-day trial.